Okay, the picture really talks a little bit about how do we make decisions in an organization. And centralization, where you have a central leader, depicted in this picture as the guy with the red shirt on, he isn't really consulting with his team. He is making decision at the top level and he is shooting that decision down. He may not even have a meeting with somebody to go over anything. He may just shoot out an email and say, make this happen. That is very centralized decision making. And so decisions are being made purely at the top. Now, in the second picture below, you kind of see the idea of decentralization. So, for the majority of my decisions, if I'm the leader, like the guy in the red shirt, I decide that I'm going to sit down with my team and we are going to, as equal partners around the table, talk about the issues of the day, the things that need to get solved, the processes we want to initiate. And I'm going to really take and ensure that every one of them has equal participation as much as I can garner that. And in an order that everybody's heard, everybody has more buy-in to the decision. And for those that have to then communicate that information down to more employees below, it's not the boss's decision, but it's our decision as a team. And so this is sort of the focus of what we hear talked about more in healthcare is shared governance. We have shared governance in the university system too, by the way. That's why we have a faculty senate that I serve on. But we have representation. We have a student senate on the university that has representation to have participative leadership. The concept of shared governance really became a big thing in the 1970s, and in the 1980s, it really was adopted huge in healthcare organizations for a couple different reasons. This same kind of shared decision making is one of the key elements in some of the quality management programs that came out of industry around that time. And then on a second point of that, when magnet accreditation status became a thing to be try to attain for hospitals, it is a key element in its expectations for accreditation purposes that you have some kind of model in place that really ensures that ongoingly that you are going to always use this kind of model to make the best practice decisions in your agency. It's very much an accountability-based system because staff are really empowered and given the autonomy as well as the accountability to be held responsible for the decisions. Again, it's decentralized management structure. And the whole outcome is staff are empowered to take action. They're empowered to give feedback readily to the people in their agency that need it, and to bring problems and things forward along with potential solutions and ideas that they have about correcting those. Shared governance, even though we hear about a lot of it in nursing, it may include other disciplines as well. And it may have family members and customers of the agency that might be actually asked to come to some council meetings and things because we want to get their input and embrace that as well if you really take on that full philosophy of shared governance. Now, does shared governance mean that every decision in a hospital is made solely by shared governance? It really means more about how do we allow practice level decision making to the practitioners who have the most stakes in things, and particularly when it comes about in terms of a discipline specific knowledge of body of knowledge that they are responsible for. So some of the implications for doing shared governance is you might not have teams that are really adopting it. They're having a shared governance council meeting, and you might even go to one of these as a new graduate. You're going to your unit's shared governance meeting. And the entire time that you're in the shared governance meeting, it's really just a staff meeting where the nurse manager really updates you on all these things that is going on and what you need to be doing and what we've not been doing well and this, that, and the other. But it's more, again, top-down communication versus a partnership and sharing. So a lot of places might call something shared governance, but I want you to really know what it is so that you know how it should be experienced. Other drawbacks to it is, of course, if you're going to have that many meetings and that many people involved, it gets to be time consuming. It's more lengthy, more different opinions have to be considered. It really requires leaders that are role models and mentors that are going to sit down with their team and say, you know, I'm going to ask you to participate. I'm going to facilitate this meeting. I'm not going to control this meeting. And until leaders in nursing have really gotten the correct kind of training on how to facilitate, it's really, I mean, there are some classes that you could take for a whole week on how to be an excellent facilitator for shared governance. So it's not something that people become experts overnight, but having that as your mindset when you go into these meetings to try to stay on that is very important. Staff empowerment really has to be something that you as a leader buy into. You know, you may have your worst employee sitting at that table, and you have to think, am I going to really empower Sally, the worst nurse, to just go off on a tangent to make decisions when I'm home on the weekend? Can I really trust that person's judgment? And so you have to really buy into, yeah, I am going to let Sally make decisions because I don't know everything Sally knows. And I can't be biased about that. I have to really at least open up to the idea of everybody's a partner, everybody has a stake, and I want to try to get all the input for the best ideas so we as a team can solve things. Often this kind of thinking creates a lot of change and innovation, and things need to be updated because people have come up with great new ideas that need to be done. If you're a manager that is really hung up on stability and you like the status quo, just like you have a lot of staff that like the status quo, but you start having shared governance meeting and every other week it's some new project or something, you may not be able to adopt this as well as somebody else. It should have an interprofessional approach, meaning that within the profession, you know, there's a neuro intensive care unit over here, there's a labor and delivery unit over here, but they're still nurses. So how do you really, within the profession, ensure that we're all in sync on some things that are going to affect all of the nursing staff? So you have to put structures in place or councils in place that kind of make sure that that kind of interprofessional activity takes place. So people are often putting in place like a new practice model for their agency. You'll see that published. And I'm going to show that in class so that you can kind of see an example of that. Again, it goes along with magnet recognition. And if you're going after that or want to maintain that accreditation status, you're going to want to have this not just in a textbook somewhere or on a policy manual somewhere that this is what our councils do, but it's really a living, breathing thing that really is working. So this is like a kind of picture of how Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center, this is their kind of visual of how their councils are set up. What are they trying to accomplish? So they have kind of structured their care and their ideas pretty much around innovation and research, professionalism, collaborative relationships, best practice, comprehensive coordinated care, and safety. So they want to see that all those elements really are alive in their practice model and are key things that they're probably managing and measuring to see how well they're doing in, all those aspects to make sure that they're really meeting the outcome goals for shared governance. Interprofessional education and collaboration has been shown to really, that kind of training, as we know, we've got an interprofessional focus here. Nurses may have a little more say in patient care if they have more connection with different disciplines and feel they have a little more equal footing. Patient education really is necessary, that has more elements than just nursing or just one area of nursing. And then you may hear about clinical process management, which is a new term that kind of goes about how do you take a clinical process in a work setting and you sit down as the interdisciplinary team and work on all kinds of different levels of process improvements. And you guys, when we get into quality management in this course, we'll touch on more of that in detail. And last of all, in terms of engagement, 51% of Americans are not engaged at work, so more than half. And most employees are not willing to put effort into organizational goals. Shared governance engages nurses to really solve the problems at the point of care, and improved technology increases employee engagement. So taking those things into consideration, are key elements that you have to think about. So if 51% of Americans are not engaged at work, how do you ensure the success of shared governance? Again, you have to have good leaders, and you have to have the kind of technology that makes it easy for engagement as well. Sorry for the coughing. I'll end there, and we'll talk about this more in class.